additional skills to become, and support their endeavor in becoming professional speakers as well as contest speakers. Our guest tonight is Ernest Sears. Ernest is a leadership coach and an author, and we asked him here tonight. He's going to talk to us a little bit about publishing and what we should be doing if we are interested in publishing a book. And the reason we picked this topic was because as entrepreneurs, as professional speakers, one of the best ways to establish ourselves as credible in the fields in which we're speaking and presenting and in which we're working is to publish a book. And so we thought that would be a very interesting topic for you all to hear about tonight. So please help me welcome Ernest Sears.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. Good evening, Tempe. So I really am looking forward to sharing the information I'm going to share with you. I'm going to do my best to share with you things that you won't even be able just to get on Google or YouTube to figure out. I want to share with you my journey that I took towards getting my book published and some of the tips that allowed me to be able to expedite the completion of my book. So before I get started, can I, through a show of hands, find out who traveled 10 miles or more to get here tonight? 10 miles or more. 10 miles or more, okay. 15 miles or more. 17 miles or more. 20 miles or more. 25 miles or more. 26 miles or more.
I'm not sure.
26 miles? 26 miles?
Okay, it's 18 to downtown.
27 miles or more. Who?
Okay, I was camping in Payson last week, and I
You would have been if it weren't for tonight. So 27 miles or more? Is that you? Well, you get a prize. I want to give you my book.
Oh.
So you win the book. All right. However, there's a caveat here. Okay, look me in the eye. You promise after you read this book that you're going to give a review on Amazon. Good, bad, or indifferent. Just put the review on Amazon. Can you do that? Awesome! Excellent. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I actually am from New Orleans, and I was transferred here to Tempe May 1st of 1995 to work for Sears National Bank. And I traveled with my wife and my older daughter. And basically, at that point, I had graduated from Yale 6 years before that, had spent nearly a year in law school, at Tulane Law School, and had begun to really build a life with my family. Instead of me focusing on law school, I thought it was more important to make sure my family was secure and that we were ensconced and I could go back to law school at any time. That was the thought. So, 22 years later, no law school. But 6 figures, 2 adult college-educated daughters, a wife who has a fulfilling career in politics, and where did that leave me? I'll tell you where it left me. Back in the end of 2015, I was in the throes of a midlife crisis. I had spent 22 years taking care of my family, making sure they had everything they could possibly need. And I really did a good job keeping the promises I kept to most people, that I kept those two, except for the really big promises in life that you keep to yourself. I didn't keep any of those promises to myself. I had decided when I was in college that I was going to be an author. I decided that I was going to be a business owner. a thought leader. And none of that stuff happened for me. I really, really was depressed. I didn't really know how I was going to go on. And I tell you, I decided in the middle of 2016 that I'd had enough. So I jumped off a cliff. I did survive it, apparently. But I jumped off the cliff of security. I jumped off the cliff of familiar paradigms. I jumped off the cliff of familiar friends, of close friends that reminded me of who I used to be, but who were not ascribing to the person I wanted to be. I jumped off the cliff of living safely and not going for what was really inside me. And after being completely tired of that, in the middle of 2016, I quit my corporate job. I left. So, 49 years old, a no corporate job. I had a 401k, but I decided I was going to spend the rest of my life doing only those things that fulfilled me at my core, doing those things that I had put off for years and years. I invested in financial wealth strategies. I invested in learning how to be a business owner. I invested in going to workshops to learn how to write books. I learned how to meditate. I don't know if you know anything about meditation, people, but I learned how to meditate, and boy, did that change everything. So, if there's anybody in this room who aspires to be an author, raise your hand. That's a lot of people. So I'm going to share with you where my journey started. After learning how to meditate, I learned that if I closed my eyes and I imagined what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be and focused on that thing just about every day, eventually that would move from the fourth dimension into this dimensional reality, and it would actually happen. Now, I couldn't just click my heels and I'd be in Kansas. It took work. So I told you a little bit of my life story, so you owe me a little bit of humor. I'm going to ask you to humor me for the next 5 minutes. And those of you who raised your hand and who stated that you want to be an author, I'm going to ask you now to close your eyes for the next 5 minutes. Close your eyes for the next 5 minutes, and I want you to imagine yourself at your favorite bookstore, your favorite one. You're sitting at a table, and there are at least 25 of your books that you are going to be signing for people that are in line to see just you and to talk to you about your books. As you sit there, I want you to take some time to look at the cover of your book and keep track of what that cover looks like. Maybe it's forming in your head, but you have to do this. Take some time and look around the room that you're in. You're sitting at the table, you're looking around in the room, and you're at your favorite bookstore, and you're imagining the way the place is organized. You see the books. There's a line of people going from your table all the way to the middle aisle of the entire store, and that line has curved around and is going outside of the store. There are a lot of people that want to talk to you. There are a lot of people that want to read your book. So take this time right now and really bask in the emotion of the gratitude of having completed your book. The gratitude of having written the book and having taken a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it took you to finish that book, knowing that it's worth it, feeling, wow, this is my book, it's done. People are here looking to talk to me. Now the person that's in front of you, whose book you're about to sign, they're looking at you, you're looking in their eyes, they're asking you questions about your book. You answer their questions, you look down and you start signing. You ask them their name, they tell you the name, and you sign, tell them something really nice in the first page of that book, and then you sign your name. Then they shake your hand, you give them the book back, and then they walk away. The next person walks up, and now I want you to look at what they have on. look at what they have on, make a mental note of what they're wearing. Make a mental note of what you're wearing. It's very important that when you're in this state that you're actually imagining and remembering what you see. So now that you've had this experience, because it has already happened, you have already written your book successfully, you have already had a book signing, and people already like your book. Take some time to bask in that and marinate in that and smile and know that this is something that is going to happen to you. You can open your eyes, give yourselves a hand. So that is how I got started. I began to imagine myself, just like you just did. And when I tell you I imagined exactly what I was wearing, I knew what I was going to be wearing. I knew the pants, the jacket I was going to wear, the shirt. I knew the store I was going to be in. And all of that stuff that I imagined actually took place on February 1st of this year. That happened. So, just recently, this past Saturday, I had my third book signing. And this is me and a couple of the people who came to my table to get their book signed. The first one is Madison, and then there's Angel and Ruben. He has a great story. Nancy Jean, she's someone who used to work for me about 15 years ago. And this is Maria. And all of them have fascinating stories. And I was very excited to talk to them, and I really believe that my book is going to help them. I told you a little bit about my family, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more, because I want you to know me. I want you to get to know where I came from before I tell you this information. Basically, the young lady on your left is my older daughter. She is a judge now. She is the Justice of the Peace for West Mesa. She was voted last year. She's a judge. She's my little baby, but she's a judge. That's my wife and I with her down there in the middle when she was campaigning. The dog in the middle is Alicia's dog, Skylar. He just died recently in November after 12 years with us. That's my wife and I at the top there. On the right is my younger daughter, Kirsten. Kirsten has a dog grooming business in Sholo, Pine Top area, Lakeside area, and it's doing very well. It's called Dogs by Design. And that's also a picture of my family down there. So now that you have already begun to imagine that you will have a book and that you've already gone through the process, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the stats. Now, 81% of people aspire to write a book. Only 0.086% achieve that. That's all. Now compare that to the number of people that become PhDs. 1% of the population has PhDs, but it's much more difficult to get a book published. Keep that in mind, but you can do it. So what I want to do right now is, along your journey to publish a book, there are some things that you need to know. I want to talk about the different types of book publishers that you need to know about. I want to talk to you about current trends. I also want to talk to you about myths in publishing that are going to be helpful once you figure those out. I want to also talk to you about the costs associated with publishing a book. And last but not least, I want to share with you some resources that are going to be very helpful for people that are just now starting writing a book. So before we go into the differences between some of the types of publishers, I'm going to pass out this handout. And if we can go ahead and pass that out. I want you to take some time to read the directions and answer those questions. This is sort of a diagnostic that will help you to understand a little bit about the differences between a trade or traditional publisher and an independent or indie publisher. So both of those, I don't expect you to know all the answers, but by the end of this, you will know those answers. As you go through those for the next 5 minutes and you finish it, when you're done, just quickly raise your hand so I can have an indication as to how many people are finished. And we'll go from there. Okay, so when you're done, actually don't want you to turn it over and look at the answers. I would like you to switch, when you're done finishing that up, whenever you're done, I want you to switch up with the person that's next to you. And once you switch up, you're going to check each other's papers and talk about the differences between indie and trade publishers. And then when we're done, we're going to move forward. The answers are on the back.
So, do you want us to make corrections on the paper?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you've already ordered. No. I'm sure
Oh,
there's a
God.
reason for it.
So I want to wrap it up in the next 2 minutes, but basically take some time to look at the answers in the back, match them, talk a little about it so you can have some insight into the differences between trade or traditional publishers and indie or independent publishers.
Question for you. What do you feel the definition of trade publisher is? Because the reason I'm asking is because Thomas Holland is flipped. And so I'm thinking you must have had a different kind of trade publisher is.
It's a diagnostic. You're not supposed to know the answers. We're going to talk about that. All right, so I know that everybody hasn't completed it, but I want to move on and talk a little bit more about some of the differences that you're looking at right now that you've been exposed to. Maybe for the first time, maybe you already know the difference between trade and indie. But basically, in the publishing field, professionals refer to self-publishing as independent publishing. We don't say self-publishing. It's not what you say. It's a term that's not really looked at in high regard. So you need to begin to start saying independent publishing or indie publishing if you want to sound like you know what you're talking about. Okay? So instead of saying self-publishing, you're an independent publisher or you're an indie publisher. And it may sound weird coming out of your mouth, but please do it because that's what they're going to understand, and then they're going to really start listening to when you talk. If you say indie, independent instead of self-publishing. Okay? All right. So I know that many people are aware of who the Big Five are, but some people aren't. So I want to share those. Penguin, Random House, they merged in 2013. Okay. Then we have HarperCollins, then Simon & Schuster, Hachette, and Macmillan. Those are the Big Five. When people say Big Five, this is what they're referring to. Okay. So we've already completed that exercise. So what I want to do right now is confirm for you what you get when you get with an indie publisher or when you get with a trade publisher. You have sole control of your book's outcome if you're independent, if you're an indie publisher. You have sole control of your book's rights. You have control over your story, control over the cover, 100%, well, up to 100% of the royalties. For the trade side, editing is included in what they offer. They also do the cover design for you. It's not something that you pay for out of pocket. Now, for marketing, notice that there are no X's there. That's because marketing is something you are expected to do yourself, whether you are an independently published, or if you are trade published, you are still expected to do marketing. So you have to learn how to do social media, or you need to hire someone to help you with social media. Even the trade publishers who are going to pay you in advance for your work, and you don't have to pay for anything out of pocket for most of the services they do for you, they will not do a lot of marketing for you. As a matter of fact, they're going to expect you to do some marketing, they're going to tell you what they expect you to do, and you're going to have an employee-employer relationship with that trade publisher, so they're expecting you to do what they say. So you will need to learn some social media to do this. Deadlines. Like I just said, the trade publisher is the one that's going to give you deadlines, and they're expecting you to follow them because you're really their employee. And I know maybe you haven't thought of it that way, but that's really the way it is. When you are able to score with a traditional publisher, it's like, woo, I got an advance. There are some things that you are beholden to get done as a result of that. Now, before I talk about royalties more, and I know that you read some things about royalties on the back of there, the answers were, if you're with a trade publisher, because they give you the advance, and there's nothing that comes out of pocket from you, you're going to get less royalties. Okay? So you're not going to get as much royalties as an independent publisher. So with a trade publisher, you're going to get up to maybe 10% or something like that. The way it happens is that you get your advance, and then you don't get royalties until the royalties that are being collected by the publisher match and break even with the advance that you've received. So once those royalties reach that level, then you start receiving them. But until then, no, you just have the advance, and that's what you're happy with. Okay? So on paperbacks, trade authors get 5%. Indie authors get 20 to 50%. On ebooks, trade authors get 25%. And indie authors get 70%, up to 70% when it comes to ebooks. Okay? That's information about royalties. Now, this is a quick little story I want to tell you. You may know this, but you may not. J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter series, when she submitted to the trade publisher, she was rejected for 26 times she was rejected. And the only reason why they accepted her is because one of the editors who was reviewing that book had a daughter who was reading through the book and was enjoying it and was almost halfway through. And when the daughter was finding out that she was going to be rejected, the daughter was like, wait a minute, I need to finish this book. And so apparently folklore says, or myth says, that the editor did not reject it because his daughter really wanted to finish the book. So that's the only reason why apparently she was accepted by that trade publisher. But what I really want to say is that now that she has achieved the renown and the acclaim that she has achieved, she has now become an independent publisher. So she is now an indie publisher, and as a result of that, she's releasing her own books and audiobooks through her company Pottermore. And as a result of that, she's going to get a lot more in the royalties for her ebooks and for her audiobooks. So good for her. Awesome job. Now, we're going to go through another exercise, and this is going to allow us to learn about another set of publishing types. Huh?
Question?
Do you have a question? Yeah.
So, in J.K. Rowling example, say she comes out with Harry Potter 1. It's a huge success. she sees some royalties, and then goes to an indie publisher. Does that mean that all rights for Harry Potter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all gone? She has no rights to them as an independent publisher, or can she?
So whatever she went to initially, if she started off trade, that book stays trade. You don't change that. If you write another book and you do it independently, then the copyright is yours. What happens is when you go with the trade publisher, when they provide you the advance, when you sign that contract, you're signing over your rights. You no longer own that work. It's not yours anymore. It's not.
And that's for the whole series.
Whatever,
Well,
it's gone. So whatever she signed over as a trade author, that's gone. That's not her. She can't get it back. She can write new stuff, or she can put it on audio or ebook from now on, and she does it as her own. Now it's hers, but those books, they're not hers.
Yeah,
She got the advance.
Her original contract
Yes.
was for a 7-book series, so she lost all of it.
Right.
So,
So
Yeesh.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
trade publishing.
she's still a millionaire, okay?
Oh, she's way past that.
I feel sorry for her.
She's way past millionaire. She's way past millionaire. But and this is something you may not have thought of, and I know I didn't, because I will be honest with you. I attempted to go straight to one of the big 5, and that is another class. There's a lot that goes into being able to get your book pitched by an agent to a big 5 publisher. You have to learn how to write queries. You have to learn how to write a hook. You have to learn how to put a book proposal together. There's a lot more to it, and this is not the scope of this seminar. But what I wanted to do is I want to get you guys to understand all the different types of publishers, and this vanity press thing is something I really want you to know about, because you can get scammed if you don't know what to look for, if you're not discerning. So right now, go through that just the way we did before. Take 5 minutes to go through it diagnostically, and once you're done, I want you to share with your results with the person next to you. Look at the answers on the back and talk about it in the next 3 or 4 minutes. We're going to move forward. And if you have questions, I'm okay with that.
I don't understand.
Say again?
Yeah, I think he's asking a question too.
What is vanity and what is hybrid? Yeah.
Understand hybrid as just.
So the idea is for you to like learn by trial and error. So you're feeling uncomfortable because you don't know what you're doing, and it's on purpose. I want you to feel that way. That way, when you do learn it, you're really gonna remember it. I'm sorry for the discomfort, but I know what I'm doing. You're gonna really remember this.
Paperbacks, you say there was not as much of a difference there. I'm wondering where the information for the royalties on paperback it would be coming from. Because for instance, if I'm taking my book to a convention and selling it directly, you getting 100% of the royalties in that case?
Is it your book that you independently published yourself, or did you?
It's not published yet, but yes.
It's
my book.
it's your book, so you get it.
So, but where did you get the numbers on it? Is that if you're doing it through like another company like Rowling or something?
Exactly. Also, there can be another person who has published books before, and they are using their own independent company. So you go through their independent publishing company to publish your book, and so they're going to get some of those books. And you may have a contract with them that allows them to provide you a la carte services. Maybe they're going to do some editing and some other services for you in exchange for some of the
Ernest,
Yes.
curiosity, did you use an agent or did you represent yourself?
So I did not, and I'm going to talk about that. Good questions. All right, so I'm assuming at this point you've had a chance to go through the hybrid versus vanity press and look at some of the answers on the back to get a feel for what it's all about. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chat with you about what it's all about. Now, the hybrid option is basically a company that sets forth a vision to follow for their company. So this is not a trade publisher, and it's not independent. It is a mixture of both. So the difference between a hybrid and vanity is that the vanity is going to accept any submission. They will take any submission. The vanity press will call you unsolicited. They will call you, they will scam you. All they're going to do is take your manuscript and publish it and say, you know, it's something they did for you. But a hybrid press is going to vet out your work and make sure that it meets industry standards. And they're also going to have ISBN numbers for their own company. Vanity Press doesn't have that. So again, a hybrid publisher is going to vet out the submissions, and that is one of the reasons why you would not call a hybrid company a Vanity Press. This is the difference between Vanity Press and a hybrid publisher. A hybrid publisher is going to publish its own defined imprint and request its own ISBNs. So anybody looking at the ISBN is going to know the name of that publisher. As opposed to, if it's a vanity press, you probably have to go in and buy your own ISBN numbers, and I'll show you how to do that. It meets the standards and best practices set out for the publishing industry. It meets design and printing standards and editorial services industry standards. They also manage the rights of the works they publish, as opposed to a vanity press. They don't really care about any of that stuff. You're out on your own. So that's why this is a little bit, you get more services than you would get from an independent publisher when you go with a hybrid publisher, because it has a lot of the characteristics of trade. It also manages the distribution services, or hires a distributor for the works. Okay? So, let's talk about me, what I did. Okay. After the question.
Oh, a vanity publisher will charge you to do it.
A lot.
Does a hybrid publisher charge you as well?
I'm about to get into that. So they both charge you, but they're charging you because you're not going to get an advance. And you are going to need to do some of the work. If you want to not pay anything, you will go with a trade publisher if you're picked, if you selected.